Our region's business is sponsored by PNC for the achiever in you.
Tickets for Kids is going to be putting a lot more tickets to sporting and cultural events in the hands of kids across the country. Early this year, the Pittsburgh-based nonprofit merged with Minneapolis-based Tix for Tots. The combined organization partners with ticket donors and social service agencies to provide opportunities for low-income and at-risk kids to access cultural, arts, sports, and entertainment venues within their communities. The organization got its start in Pittsburgh in 1994. And Jason Riley is the executive director of Tickets for Kids Charities. And welcome. Good to see you again.
Good to see you, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for folks who don't know the organization, I gave a little bit of a thumbnail description there, but what are you all about?
Sure. You know, the mission of our organization is implied by the name Tickets for Kids, of course. And so it's all about creating access for low-income and at-risk kids, as well as their families, to the cultural resources of their communities. So the art museums, the science centers, the zoos, the family entertainment. A lot of these facilities that many of them live in the shadows of, literally, but don't oftentimes have the access. And so we partner with both individual ticket donors, but also the institutions themselves to provide that access for social service agencies who are specifically serving that target population.
And I've been to plenty of performances and plenty of sporting events, and there often seems to be more than a few empty seats. And so they've got inventory. I guess the challenge is how do they find the right kids and get in touch with the right folks to be able to take those tickets?
That's exactly right, and that is much of the value that we provide to the ticket donor as well. So part of our process is that any organization that wants to receive a ticket through Tickets for Kids, they have to go through an application process, and it's brief, but it's in order for us to ensure that they are a 501c3, that they're serving at least 70% low income or at-risk kids. And so it takes the burden of that responsibility off of the ticket donor in terms of identifying a route through which they can get the ticket to the user that they intend.
And how do you figure out that the user, if you're looking at underserved, underprivileged children, how do you make sure you're getting it to the right kids?
Sure. So we have increased sort of levels of accountability. Any agency that becomes a partner of ours goes through an orientation process. And by agency, I mean the social service agency that's serving the kids. And then they identify one person who becomes our main contact. And that person is the only one who can request opportunities on behalf of the organization. That person is also the one that we can hold accountable should those tickets go misappropriated or missing or something along those lines. But they're also required then to do post-event reports. So they report after the event back on the number of kids, the number of adults. They give us stories from the kids. And that's where we get a lot of the anecdotal information that we're provided with about a kid who went to a ball game for the first time, or a kid who went into a theater for the first time and said, hey, you know what, I want to try that. I didn't realize that that was something I could do. And that's another reason that we find there's a lot of value in providing these opportunities through the social service agencies and not to the kids directly. And that is that when a kid has that experience, they're having it within the context of a supportive community and that they're going to have regular interaction with, who can continue to foster the facility or foster the growth of that.
Sure, otherwise
interest.
Just a one-off attendance at some event, which is a nice thing, but what's the lasting benefit of that? So how much of your work happens here in our region? How much outside it?
So up until the end of last year, about 50% of our work happened in the region here.
Really?
So
okay.
we do about 140,000 opportunities a year. 70,000 of those was happening in the Pittsburgh region.
And now you've got the merger with Tix for Tots, and what does that enable you to do that you couldn't do before?
Sure, so that enables us to have folks on the ground in Minneapolis, where Tix for Tots is located or was located. But what it does is it allows us to take sort of the best of both organizations. We had worked with Tix for Tots since 2014, collaborating on different distribution opportunities. And what we recognized was that there were great aspects to both organizations, and we had the same exact mission. So we said, instead of doing this parallel, let's take the best of both organizations, bring it together so that we can increase our efficiencies, thus increasing our capacity for distribution and impact to kids without a commensurate increase in operational expense. And so that's what we're looking at now. And so
you have offices in both places?
So we have our office here, our national office is here in Pittsburgh. We have staff located on the ground in Philadelphia working from a home office, and the two folks who joined us from Minneapolis also work out of home offices there.
So you have a kind of a virtual organization to make all this happen.
That's right, that's right. Virtual is both very beneficial to us. It allows us to keep our costs low, and in some cases it it makes life a little more difficult. You know, Bill, you're trying to have those face-to-face conversations with your colleagues and so forth. But also in the funding world, we find one of the things we're really conscientious of is making sure that the donors who provide operational support to the organization, that it's being spent on activity in their region. And so, of course, we look for support for activity in the 40 states that we distribute tickets in. But a lot of funders are hooked on this idea of a brick and mortar facility. And
they actually want you to have overhead.
That's right. They want us to increase
funny.
the overhead costs. But,
wow. Well, that's an interesting educational thing, because so many funders really strive for organizations that stay as lean as possible in their ability to do good work. So how's it been going since the merger? Is it already adding value, do you think, having the two organizations together?
It absolutely is. You know, Tickets for Kids, although we've been in Pittsburgh for 23 years, a lot of folks I don't think knew about the reach that the organization had. So we've distributed tickets in all 50 states and 3 provinces in Canada. But this really has raised the profile of Tickets for Kids for people to look to us as a national organization. And so we've now had interest from Portland, Oregon, and from Denver, Colorado, and people coming to us and say, hey, will you replicate this model in our cities? And there are a couple other organizations that have a somewhat similar model, not quite exactly the same. But what these folks are telling us is that they've identified us as best in class. And so, I mean, that's how Tix for Tots came to join Tickets for Kids. And I think it speaks highly to the work that Tickets for Kids is doing, but also to the network that it's created over the course of its history.
Well, that's exciting. Congratulations. Great to see it happening out of our region. Jason Riley from Tickets for Kids. Good to see you. Thanks.
Thank you. You too, Bill.
And next up, we'll be back in a minute with a little dollars and cents. Stay with us.